Okay, so welcome, and today we're going to talk about how to leverage email alternatives. And there's a very specific reason that I'm talking about this, which you will find out very quickly. I'm the Director of Law Practice Management and Technology here at the Chicago Bar Association, and according to LinkedIn, I've been here 6 years and 9 months. If you ever forget how long you've been somewhere, LinkedIn is very good for reminding you. The reason I thought about doing a program on leveraging the alternatives to email is because email is sort of a problem at this point. How many of you have more than 1,000 messages in your inbox? So I started working on a big project, and I've never seen my inbox explode once it started really going, because there were emails flying around because that's how we were communicating. And it got really messy. And one of the things is that email is self-managed. So each one of us is required to manage our own inboxes. We have to create a system of folders, move those emails into folders. Then, inevitably you'll say, did you get the email? I haven't heard back from you. Oh, well, I think my spam filter ate it, or I never saw it. And so it's not always a good way to communicate because you can't tell what the other person is seeing, what didn't get through, how they're managing it. People don't take the attachments out and send them to the file server like they should. People get in trouble for BCCing a client, and then when the client hit replies all, then everybody sees that it was, the client was BCC'd, weird things happen. And then we're also mostly using these things, and we're answering our phone, which means that I'm probably not effectively reading or comprehending what I'm seeing on my phone because it's so tiny. So we get emails on their phones, and then we're expected to respond. It's hard to respond with any depth when you're on a tiny little device. So, email is just not a great tool, especially for project-based or matter-based communication. If we could find something that puts a wrapper around all the communication for us and adds some more rich context to it, I think that's what I was looking to find. So the other thing is, it depends on what your use case is. And different tools are better for different use cases. So if your pain point is in the firm itself, having communication and email not being the best way to do it, I'm going to show you some alternatives like Slack, which just about every company except for law firms that I know uses Slack for communication, and primarily for internal communication. But I'm also using it with other people for groups. And then also there's chat tools. There's all sorts of different little kind of telepresence type of, or not telepresence, but presence types of, I can see that this person is here and then I can chat with them. Are any of you on Facebook? Anyone? Okay. In Facebook, you can see if there's a little green dot by the person's name, that means they're online. And then if I know they're online, then I can send them a chat message. And it's just a quick way to communicate, faster than picking up the phone, and it's just short communication. So sometimes it doesn't need to be a whole email. How many times when you get an email that just says thanks or okay, you both are happy that you got the acknowledgement and kind of irritated because you got another email to deal with. And so it's one of those things where looking for a better way, especially for the short form, quickie kind of communication, may be more effective. The other thing, email doesn't really display emotion very effectively, and people read into it and think you're being sarcastic, or they can't tell what your tone or your mood is. And so that's when I think video conferencing comes into play, because then you can actually see someone's face, you can communicate with them in real time, you can make sure they're paying attention, because people, obviously you'll get email responses where you can tell they didn't read the whole email. So when you have a face-to-face communication, it's a lot easier to tell when they're paying attention. But one of the downsides with face-to-face communication is you guys all came in here. That adds at least an hour to your day other than being in the classroom, because you got 30 minutes to get ready, come over here, and then turn around and leave again. So a face-to-face meeting is a huge time commitment. I mean, it's a great thing to do, but it's a huge time commitment. I mean, you don't always have that, especially if you're in the city and someone's in the suburbs or vice versa, or they live, downstate, upstate. So video conferencing, I think, is an excellent way to quickly communicate with someone. You can share screens, you can do all sorts of things. Then that kind of instant communication, how many of you text? Use text on your phone. Okay, so texting is great, but a lot of lawyers are a little nervous to text with their clients for a variety of different reasons. So we're going to look at some alternatives. And then the other thing is relying on your inbox as a to-do list. That your inbox, people are sending you messages that should be going into your task management, but instead you just leave it in your inbox, but you need to go back to that email to remind yourself to do something. And if we were good, we would move it into our calendars or move it into our task management. But there's some interesting tools on the market now that turn your inbox into a task management tool. So I'll show you those. And then finally, encryption and security. I got an email from an attorney just the other day who's like, what's out there that's easy to be able to allow me to encrypt files when I send them via email? The easiest thing to do is, if you need to encrypt a file and attach it to an email, is password protect the document before you send it. It's not perfect security, but it's better than nothing. But if you really want more high-end, secure, end-to-end encryption, I'm going to show you two different products that you can do that fairly easily. And so you don't have to necessarily get an add-on for your email. You can use a different tool for encrypted communication. So what's the downside to all of this? Well, you do have to still use email. We're not going to get away from email. I would love to think that we will live in a perfect world where email is no longer necessary, but we're not. We're stuck with it, and it's going to be how we communicate. But really, again, to me, the opportunity here is to look at, if I have a matter or some specific project where there are players, all the people who are communicating, and then a way to put all of the communication regarding that particular issue or matter into one place where everybody can see it and nobody's supposed to be managing all this stuff. So I don't have to look at my horrifying inbox and figure out which folders they go into and all of that stuff. It's all threaded in one place for me. But you are going to have to learn some new tools. And they're not hard, but it takes a second to get used to, because you're used to email and how it works. And no matter what email product you get, in front of you, you've got the basics down. I put in a to, I put in a CC, I put in a subject, I put in a body, I attach something, I send. And it works the same way with all of the products on the market. Well, these other tools, there's some other things to think about. If you are a user of social media, some of these will make more sense than others, because now, instead of sending back an email that says thank you, you can actually hit a little button and it makes a thumbs up symbol. So they know that you saw it, but you don't have to send another message. And your workflow will change. But this is a good thing, because project management is something that needs to be worked into everybody's workflow more effectively, so that we're not reacting, that we're planning. And then there's more places to check up on. And I think that's probably one of my biggest problems. I get messages in email, in Facebook, in LinkedIn, in Twitter, in Slack, in all of these places, and I have to go check them all. And sometimes that can feel overwhelming, but I like them. So why are we doing all this? Sounds like it's kind of a pain, and why would I change? Well, because you have a lot more control over where the messages live. You don't have to worry about kind of archiving them and figuring out what's happening. It's all kind of put together for you. You can also separate casual conversations from more formal communications. You could leave email to something that was kind of part of the client record, but if you just needed to check back and forth with your client, you could use a different tool. You can keep a cleaner inbox. My inbox is honestly stressing me out right now. I keep meaning to go clean it out, but it gets more and more full of stuff. that I am having a hard. I mean, I can read it and I remember that I saw it, but that's about it. And then beyond that, I just can't carve out the couple of hours that it takes to clean it. And then the other thing is identifying action items from the get-go so that they don't end up sitting in your inbox. So let's look at some of the tools that I found that I thought were interesting. And the first segment I called Better Email, because it's still email, but it makes your inbox a little better. And so the first one is this thing that I found called Drag App. And it's being used by 30,000 companies all over the world. And it's a Gmail add-on. Now what's interesting is a lot of people use Gmail and Google Suite as their primary email application. And a lot of people really like Gmail. I'm not a huge fan of Gmail because I've used Outlook my entire professional life, and so I'm used to that. But Drag App is it's an MIT startup. It's a Google featured product. It's a Google add-on. It's a Chrome extension basically, and it turns your Gmail inbox into a project management board. So how many of you have ever heard of the project management philosophy called Kanban? Anyone? Okay. So Kanban is a project management methodology that they originated at Toyota in Japan, and it's pretty simple conceptually. You divide it into boards, and the three big boards are start, in progress, and done. And you basically create all these little, and this was all done physically, you create all these little post-it notes that have the task and the assignment, and then you move it from the first block to the next block to the next block. So you just keep physically moving the cards over. If you've ever seen other project management tools, they want to say what percentage of time you finished. And the Google, or rather the Outlook task did that. They would say, are you 20% done? Are you 30% done? And a lot of us are like, I have no idea. I'm either working on it or I'm done with it. Or somewhere in the middle. So Kanban's a little looser philosophically. So I'm just going to show you what this looks like. So this is my Gmail account. It's all my personal stuff, but if I turn on drag, then it changes my inbox into the kind of Kanban project management system. So my inbox now is under to do, and then we have doing, and then we have done. So the three different, but you can add more than this if you need more than this. So your inbox is now kind of a Kanban board, and you can, it's as simple as moving an email, find one that seems good, over to, all right, so here's a podcast I want to watch. So it's going to go from my to-do list to I want to do this. And so I drag it over here. Then if I want to add some intelligence to it, I can add comments. And then I can task myself and even set a due date. So you've added some intelligence. You can see that it's added the date to it. And then once I finish this, I would just drag it over to done. And then I could delete the email or folder to do whatever. So it's not doing anything really to your inbox, because you can toggle it right back off and everything's where it was until you move it into a folder. But it just kind of helps you triage your inbox. So I thought that was interesting. Another thing that you can do is just add a task. So I need to add a task here. So I just click and now I've just added a task here. So there wasn't even an email. So you can just use it as a task management tool as well. I can add more boards And the way I can add more boards is go up here. And if I wanted, so I have the main board, and that's the one it automatically creates, but I also created another one if I wanted to create another one and say we're going to give this one, so we're going to add the Jones Matter board. So anything that has to do with the Jones Matter that comes into my inbox, I can actually go and check on this, go up here to the send to column, and it hasn't recognized my new board yet, but you can move it to one of the other boards. And then to get to your other boards, you just go over to the other board. So now you're starting to create this whole organizational system with task management from within your inbox. No separate tools to play with or anything else. You can also add a collaborator. So in this one, you can see that I've already invited someone else. So I went and looked at her computer to see what it would look like. So we're basically we have shared emails without emailing each other or forwarding an email. I can actually share specific boards with another person, say in the office, that you wanted to be able to share with. I work with a lot of sole practitioners who they're using Gmail or Yahoo or AOL or whatever, and their assistants are using whatever they use. This would be a useful thing, I think, to kind of get it all together, because I was talking to one gentleman the other day who I said, how does your assistant, email people? Oh, she uses my computer. So I'm like, all right, that's kind of crazy, but so that's DragApp. I thought it was interesting in terms of just looking at a product that, it costs $3 a month. So it's not terribly expensive, but it does. And then you can toggle it right back off in your inboxes just like it was. So DragApp's interesting. Flowy, for people who are using Outlook or Office 365, is very, very, very similar to DragApp. It is $5 a month for Pro and pretty much has a lot of the same conceptual ways of putting these things together. It says personal Kanban, inbox zero, getting things done, whatever philosophy you want to use to keep your email under kind of control. You can use these little tools to do that. So there's another kind of, I guess, way to think about dealing with your email. And this is the only practice management product that I know of that has built-in email. So most of the practice management products on the market for law firms we'll say, okay, we assume you use Gmail or Outlook or something like that. We'll integrate with it. We'll have a bidirectional sync with it. ZollaSuite actually decided to build email into their practice management. And I'm going to show you what it looks like, because I found that once I saw this, I actually thought it was the best idea ever when I thought it was a terrible idea before I saw it. So looking at this, this is ZollaSuite. It's a practice management product, and I'm going to log in, and you just use your existing email account, whatever that is, and use this. Like if you have ever downloaded Outlook and connected it to a Gmail, or if you've downloaded Thunderbird and connected a Hotmail account to it or something like that, that's pretty much the same process. And then you can see your email in the dashboard. And then you can actually go to your email, and it opens up a whole email interface. But I'll show you why I think these things are useful. In your inbox, you can add anybody who sent you an email into your contacts, and this isn't going into your regular contacts. This is all within your law practice management software. So I can click on this to add it to my contacts. Oops. On this guy, and it puts the person's name and last name and email address in here. But you'll see that unlike your contacts in Outlook or Gmail, this is related to the matter. So you can relate the matters to this person, how you want to bill them. So as you're getting emails from potential clients and you want to add them to your contacts, you can do it straight from the email pretty easily. The other thing is, if I select this message, I can convert it to a task or an event with a big click, which is also nice. Big buttons make it very easy to see. And then the other thing is this purple briefcase. So if I get an email, let me see if I can find one that if I click here, I can add it to a specific matter right from the email. So you don't have to create folders. If you've already created the matter in your practice management software, it just adds that email to the matter, which I think is very useful. Then the other thing I like about it is the compose feature. So when I go to compose an email, I'm pulling from, first I select the matter that this is regarding. So we'll find one. Then when I click on to, I'll find a better one. Let's see. When I click on to, they're color coded. So if I'm in the matter of Courtney Smith, I'm going to be first presented with all the people who are the primary contacts in the matter for Courtney Smith, which makes sense, and then all others. If you've ever accidentally sent an email to the wrong person, you know that you can use all the help you can get to identify who it is you're sending it to and how they are related to the particular matter. There's also a send registered button, so you get RPost for free with this product. And RPost basically lets you send registered receipt email with encryption. Also, it starts a timer, so as soon as you say what matter this is related to, it's starting a timer. You can save it as draft. You can do all sorts of other things, but it's just interesting because it's email specific to the matter. And then the final thing is when you go to your matter inbox or the matter dashboard, if I go to this matter, you don't have to migrate your email anywhere. All of the communication for this matter is already there. So everything that has to do, all your emails already associated with the matter, which is also very nice because every other product that I know of, you have to do something to move your emails, whether you save in a PDF and attach them to the matter, or you migrate them or forward them, or in some other way, get it over there. So I thought this is pretty useful stuff. So the other thing I wanted to show you, I mentioned encrypted email. So Zola Suite has it built in with RPost, but the other thing I like is Citrix ShareFile. Citrix ShareFile is primarily kind of like, I hate to say that it's like Dropbox, but it is, in that it is there to store files, but it stores files very securely. They have a lot of bells and whistles that Dropbox does not have in terms of workflows and templates and check-ins and checkouts and enterprise level encryption and all sorts of different things. But the one thing about this is, to get all the features that I would think that would be really useful for a law firm, you probably need to have at least 5 users, and it's $100 for 5 users a month. But if you have fewer than that in the office, it's probably not a great use of your money. But I'll show you kind of what it looks like, because it's interesting in that there's 2 different ways to go about it. And I guess the good thing is, like all good security, it logs you out if you try to stay logged in for too long. But if you go into your inbox and I go to send a new email, a couple of different buttons normally pop up, which are hiding for me right now. Let's see if I can't. Okay. It has little buttons that do things like let you attach a document and send it encrypted And then, which you can pull off your hard drive, save to share file, and then send off, or you can pull something out of share file. But no matter what you do, it shows up in here. So in my inbox, in my sent messages, I sent myself an encrypted message earlier today, and you have the ability to encrypt the file, expire the file if you want to. So if somebody doesn't get it in 180 days, it locks them out. It also sends me a read receipt to let me know that the person has downloaded the file. So you get a lot of intelligence with it. And what it does is it sends the email to the recipient. I'll drag off. Hopefully. And it sends the person that you sent it to an email, and it first says you have been sent an encrypted file. The second email it sends you is instructions on how to get the encrypted file, which is smart because it doesn't send it all in one place. But then you can go and access it, and then I can see what I sent, what the file was, and it's end-to-end encrypted. And the end user, the person that you're sending it to, your client or your co-counsel or whomever, doesn't have to have any software or an account. They have to create an account if you say you need to log in with a username and password, but it doesn't cost them anything. And that way, especially in situations like, say you were doing family law cases and you're sending files over to your client, if they had something where their computer automatically decrypted the file without an additional username and password, then anybody who might have access to that computer would also be able to see the decrypted file. So I'm a big fan of having a secondary username and password and not having something decrypted just automatically when they open it up. But those are things to think about. So that's for secure communications. You have Citrix Share File. Then you have what I called better than email. So this is the not email stuff. And one of them I thought is really interesting. Has anyone ever heard of Signal or WhatsApp? So WhatsApp gotten a lot, well, they've been kind of outed for being incredibly insecure. Signal, on the other hand, is supposed to be incredibly secure. It is, in fact, what the attorneys for Edward Snowden used to communicate with him. It is end-to-end encrypted, and basically it's like SMS. It's just like using text messages, but it has some richer features than that. So I decided I would test it out with a friend of mine who is corporate counsel at Cray, which is one of the largest supercomputer. It keeps going somewhere else. It's hiding from me. I don't know where it's going. At any rate, it looks like chat. It's just little boxes, and you can go back and forth. You can send pictures. You can send attachments. Let's see if I can get this to pull up. There we go. There is a desktop version. There is a version for your phone. And as you can see, it just is a threaded discussion. It works a lot like your text messaging on your phone, except that I can go in and say, I want to see all media. So in this conversation, there was one image and one document. And then I can also say, I want to disappear any messages while we chat within 30 seconds or 5 seconds. So you can immediately make your conversation poof, in case you're having a conversation you never want a record of. Then you can reset the session, delete messages. There's a safety number so you can make sure before you start communicating that this is, in fact, if they have a series of numbers and you have the same series of numbers, then you can authenticate so you know for sure that it's the person you mean to communicate with. And then on your phone, you can actually export the entire conversation to an external media. So a flash drive or something like that, whatever you can add on your phone, a SIM card, but you can pull the conversations off, delete them. So the one thing about any encrypted communication is the encryption is just as good as the person using it. So I've seen a number of instances where, Signal was hacked. It wasn't hacked, it wasn't cracked, the encryption didn't break. It's because someone took a screenshot of their conversation and sent it to someone else. So again, the end users are the ones who probably are going to break the security of the thing, not because the product itself is insecure. So what's the use case for this? When you have a client who wants to text with you, but you want something a little bit more secure, something that you can keep a record of if you need it, something that you can remove the record of if you don't want it. So depending on who you're representing, if they want to text with you, as we've all seen on TV repeatedly, all the police have to do is go get the cell phone records from the cell phone company, and they'll give you the entire text history or what they can get. So this is the kind of thing where nobody has access to it except you and the other end user. So things to think about in case you're ever representing an internationally known criminal or something like that. And I'm not necessarily being sarcastic because I know it does happen. They deserve representation too. There's another practice management product that has an interesting new feature set, and that's Rocket Matter, and they have an internal chat for firms. So if you're in the Rocket Matter interface and you just want to communicate with people in the firm, again, it's very much like texting, and you can just talk to the people within the firm itself. So the next thing I wanted to show you is using Google Docs for communication. So if you've ever used Google Docs before, Google Docs is really great for collaboration. Not so great for formatting, but it is really good for having multiple people being able to be in a document, make edits, and communicate. You can add comments. So if I wanted to add a comment, I can just say this paragraph needs to go. And this stays with this document. So people can go in and redline it, but they can also add, comments just like you can in Microsoft Word, except in Microsoft Word, most people think of that emailing the document back and forth and adding the comments and adding the redline. It's all in the browser. So anybody who has access to it that you've given access to can add these things, and it's all in one place. But what's also cool is I see that Anne, who I've shared this document with, is also in the document editing at the same time. So I'm going to start a chat. And if Anne is there and her document is actually open, then she'll chat back at me. And I have actually had really good conversations with somebody because I saw they were in the document, and I've just been, hey, what do you think about paragraph 3? Are we looking at the right thing? So you can chat back and forth with somebody. You don't have to pick up the phone. You don't have to email documents back and forth. You can just have a live chat session while you're editing the document. The cool thing is I can tell where her mouse is or her cursor is. So she's up at the top of the document. If I want to kind of say, she can now see where my cursor is. So I don't have to say, I'm in the last part of the document. And draw her attention to the part of the document that I'm in, and then chat with her. So that's a pretty cool way of not emailing back and forth, and it's real-time communication, which I'm often a fan of, because you know that if you send a document via email to someone else, then it's up to them to open it, deal with it, and send it back. And their timeline is not the same as your timeline most of the time. So you're going to find that you're waiting to hear back from them, whereas this is instantaneous. And so you could even arrange in time to get into a document, make the edits you need, have the chat going on, and then get out. And so here's one thing to note, which may be a good thing. When you close down this down, the entire chat thread is obliterated. So if you said something you don't want anybody to know about, or you criticize your senior partner for their edits, or whatever it is, the chat is gone as soon as you're not chatting with that person. And you can tell who you're chatting with, again, because they're logged in and you can see who's in there. Similarly, Microsoft Word and Office 365 will let you do online comments. They don't have chat. I'm suspecting that they will have chat soon because they're really good at keeping up with the Joneses in terms of somebody has a feature set, somebody else brings it on. I did a program about 8 months ago on texting with clients. And I know that that's stressful for a lot of attorneys because it's quick communication. It's hard to track. The police can track it, evidently. Nobody else can. How do you keep a record of it? Blah, blah, blah. So there's a product on the market. If you've got a practice where you've got a lot of people putting pressure on you to text, ZipWhip is probably worth the money. ZipWhip basically allows you to use your business phone number so people can text your business line, but instead of coming in as a call or doing something weird like your fax machine does, to switch over, it just comes into this interface called ZipWhip. And it looks very much like that Signal interface did. It's a threaded communication. Your contacts are over there. ZipWhip actually allows you to take the whole communication thread and save it as a PDF. So you get that whole conversation pulled out. You can add attachments and all those kinds of things. But the person communicating with you is using their text from their phone. And I've worked with attorneys who represent criminal, they do criminal defense. A lot of those folks want to be able to use text messaging. People in professions where they frequently text, like in construction, they're out on the job and they would just want a quick communication. They can't use their phones because it's too loud, and they're often wearing hard hats and things like that, so they just want to text. So thinking about who you represent and if they've asked for text messaging, and if you want to make that part of your business communication, you can, but you probably need to have a business level tool to be able to do it. There are plenty of ways you can just use your phone if you're comfortable with that, but I know that a lot of attorneys I've spoken with have not been comfortable. I also mentioned I'm a big fan of video conferencing. Has anyone used Zoom for video conferencing? Okay, how many of you have used WebEx or GoToMeeting or something like that? So when someone says, let's do an online call, you pick up the phone and then you can see their screen. This is what you're doing, except you're adding video to the mix. So video, audio, screen sharing, document sharing, whiteboarding, all of this stuff. Zoom is free as long as the call doesn't go over 40 minutes. The next level up is $15 per month, and then you get unlimited users, unlimited time on the call, and it works really, really well. One of the things, when you get on a conference call and everybody starts talking at once, and then everybody shuts up, and then someone says something and everybody starts talking again, and it's terrible. So one of the cool things that Zoom does is, even if you don't have somebody coming in via video, they just call. When I'm talking, my little screen gets bigger for everybody else. So it can tell who's talking. So you don't talk over each other. You don't have those weird silences and all that kind of stuff that a lot of times the audio conferencing creates. Plus, it's just helpful to be able to see other people. It's also funny to see other people's offices and what stuffed animals and things they have in their office. But when we did the Animal Law International Conference here at the Chicago Bar last summer, we had lawyers from New Zealand, Venezuela, Kansas, all over the place come in through Zoom. So it was very effective, and nobody had a problem with it from a technical perspective. It doesn't require a lot of bandwidth. So a lot of the things that video conferencing did not work well for, say, 5 years ago, seem to have been solved. And I'm a big fan of Zoom because it just works really easily. So I mentioned project management kind of philosophy, things like Kanban. There's other ways you can do project management. You've probably all heard of Gantt charts and things like that. There's Lean Six. There's all sorts of different ways you can do project management. But I found some products that I thought were interesting in addition to the stuff that's already, kind of more well-known on the market in terms of how they position themselves. So Fleep is one that was interesting because it's all about project communication. So again, it's kind of it integrates with your email, so you can still use email if you want to, but it emails it into a place that's then the container for the communication around that particular project. You can add tasks, you can task people, you can have a shared calendar. It threads all the communication, so you can one of the things that people like about the Gmail interface is it has threaded communication, so you can see, all of the conversation under a particular subject heading. So it does that. It has what it calls a file drawer, so you can open up a little panel and all the files associated with that particular conversation show up. Similarly, they have a task drawer that you open up. You can see all the tasks, and then it's you can also open up an audio or a video conference call right from within Fleep, and it's a European product, so it's €5 per month. But these are the kind of products that are coming out on the market fast and furious because email is inefficient. So they're coming up with ways to kind of put all the communication into one place. Similarly, we're going to look at Slack, which is an incredibly popular product. Microsoft had a product that they put out called Teams, and Teams comes with Office 365. It's part of your subscription. They have now pulled that out and made it free for everybody to try to compete with Slack. And so Microsoft Teams is very similar to Fleep in that you have conversations, files, you have a wiki. Has anyone ever used a wiki? You know what Wikipedia is. And you can go in and people can make edits to a particular topic. Internally, for a firm, a wiki can be a user manual. How do you do something? What does an intake system look like? Or what does this process look like? What are our favorite legal research resources for these types of activities? Whatever you want to have, but it lets everybody go in and make edits to it. And so it can be incredibly useful, like a living how-to document. And if you've never played around with something like that, and if you have a team, this is actually really useful stuff. So Microsoft Teams is now free, but if you have Office 365, you should definitely take a look at it because it's part of your subscription. The nice thing about having it within your Office 365 subscription is all your users are already there. It's easy to add people, but you can add people from outside. They organize it by channels, which I'll show you in Slack in a second. So the other one is kind of group communication or team communication. This doesn't focus on the file management side and the audio and the video and the kind of putting it all in one wrapper. This is really just about a team communication. So Monday, I got bombarded with ads for this product so much that I finally decided to go look at it. And it looks interesting. One of the things that I think looks particularly promising with Monday is that you start with a template. So what am I doing? And it has a template, so you're not even trying to create the structure for the communication. You start off with a template, you customize it, you add your team members, and then it's basically like email, but again, kind of like a threaded discussion, and all in one place, and it's about a particular project. Office 365 is another product from Microsoft, and I thought I would show it to you because it's interesting in that it's the new how many of you used listservs at some point where you had one email that you emailed and then it went to a whole distribution group of people who had signed up to get that email, which was very useful. So a lot of people used it. So that's what Microsoft has kind of brought back. So I created a group, and the group's email is ilp@chicagobar.onmicrosoft.com, or whatever your domain would happen to be. And so there's 6 people in this, but we all email to that email address, and then it creates this threaded discussion. It also, when you create the group, it also creates a shared file structure. It also creates a shared calendar. So it's almost like taking Outlook and making it just for a particular group. So it's all kind of put together for you. And then they have Planner, which is a project management tool, and Sites, which are SharePoint team sites, which complicates the matter a little bit. But if you just go back even just to conversations, if you create a group, now everybody just emails the same email, so it doesn't all get lost in the mix, and it's all sorted and put together for you. And if you have Office 365, you might have never noticed, if you just go into your contacts, which is now called People, there's a little section with a plus button, and you click on the plus button and it says create a group. Do you want it to be private or do you want it to be public? Which of course you would never say you want it to be public. I can't even conceive. Although I guess if you're trying to replace an open listserv, and then you invite people to it, and then you have one email, and it's all threaded. So I think that's actually pretty nice. I mentioned Slack. This is the one that probably most people think about when they think about email alternatives. It's group messaging. It's free, although they have better security and more administrative controls if you pay for it. Obviously, it's encrypted end to end. There's apps. There's a desktop version, so it's just like installing Outlook or Thunderbird or something. And I'm going to show you what this looks like when it's done well. So this is the Tech Show Boards Slack. We're pretty organized, so one thing you'll see is, and I think this is helpful, so we know for this particular project, which is a huge conference at the end of February, and there's a board, so there's 9 people on it, and we all have different roles and responsibilities. So the first thing we did was we create channels. And so just like having an email in a folder, it works almost backwards. So instead of adding a message and putting it in a channel, you actually go to the channel and add a new message. So it's already there. And then you can, and this is the water cooler channel. You should always make time for fun, right? So there's a water cooler channel in here, but you can go through and remember when I said you could like something? I can like this. I don't have to respond. I can put a silly little emoji face or whatever. So it is kind of fun. I can start a thread. So if this particular, I know this is distracting. So I can go up and I can forward it to somebody. I can turn this into a thread. I can star it if I want to go back to it. But all of this kind of stays in one place. There's a way to direct message somebody. So if I want to have a sidebar with some people in this Slack channel, then I can go in and message them. And it just goes to those people. And you can direct message individuals and all of that kind of stuff. It also integrates with things like Google Drive. So if I I put the link to the Google Drive, it actually puts the document in here, and it makes it much easier for people to find it and get to it. So Slack is something that a lot of people use, and there's definitely likes and dislikes. It takes a little getting used to. Again, if you're a social media user, this is something that's a little bit more familiar to you, but it still takes a little getting used to. One of the things that you're probably going to see more and more is if I mention someone, I put the at symbol, and then I can call out a particular person. They'll get a notification on their phone that they have a message that they need to pay attention to. So even though I think we have a little message fatigue and notification fatigue, because my phone, I have a lot of notifications for different things, many times that aren't that relevant. Like Twitter is particularly bad now about giving me mentions where I get notifications and it's just, hey, did you see somebody said something? I don't care. But if someone's saying something to me, I care more. And so you can do this at thing and it pops it up in their notifications, and hopefully they'll pay more attention to it. The last one I wanted to mention, because a lot of this stuff is in the cloud, and that makes some lawyers nervous, although I will be the first, and I won't be the last to say, there's nothing wrong with the cloud. I mean, don't go use free stuff. Don't go use stuff that you didn't read the terms and conditions and all that stuff, but there's nothing inherently wrong with the cloud. It's probably more secure than most of your on-premise environments, especially when you've outsourced your IT and they only come when you call them. There's a lot to be said for the security of the cloud, but if you are worried about it, there is a product called Mattermost. It's open source, so it is free because you get no support. That's what open source means. Really cool software that people developed, gave the code to anybody who wanted to use it, and you get what you pay for. So if you have a WordPress site, you probably hired somebody to create the WordPress site. WordPress, the software is free, and then you have people you have to pay to figure out how to use it. So, or you get on chat threads and try to figure it out yourself, which I've done, and I would not recommend it. So open source isn't necessarily a bad thing, but there are some gives and takes. But this stuff you can actually load on your server or on your private cloud, and then you can have kind of a very similar structure to Slack, but completely private to your own environment. So if having it in the cloud, or you go, we really want to use this for our internal team, we're really not interested in having anybody else have access to it, this is the kind of thing that you can get. And because it's open source, in this particular instance, it is completely free, except for the part where you have to hire somebody to install it and set it up and do all that stuff. So that is my whole spiel on alternatives to email. Again, it's kind of one of those things where you may not need it now. You may not feel the pain right now. You may at some point go, oh, I get it. I understand. We could have a better communication if we took it out of email and added some structure, task management, document management around it. Or we need something more secure than email. What are the alternatives? It's just things to keep in your mind. And we will get this edited and put up in the how-to library in the next couple of days if you want to go back and review. And I appreciate your time. Thank you.